The United States government is currently paying a single corporation billions of dollars extra, specifically because that corporation is failing to deliver critical nuclear submarines on time.
I mean, when a normal company fails to deliver its core product, it goes bankrupt.
But when General Dynamics falls, 12 to 16 months behind schedule on the Columbia-class nuclear submarine, the Navy just hands them a $15.4 billion contract modification.
We are not looking at a business here.
We are looking at a sovereign administrative state operating under the legal protection of a corporate ticker symbol.
The cognitive trap you're caught in is what we can call the free market illusion in defense. You assume the military-industrial complex operates like a marketplace.
You think the government identifies a national security need? Aerospace companies compete by designing the best technology and, the winner gets the contract.
Believing that blinds you to the actual mechanism of power. The danger is measuring these corporations by the rules of capitalism while they are playing by the rules of imperial administration.
You think they're trying to win a game when in reality they have already bought the board. What happens when the person building the weapons is the exact same person who wrote the rules for how the government buys them?
We have the Government Accountability Office audits, the internal financial filings, the congressional lobbying records spread out in front of us. All of these sources point toward a structural reality that defies every conventional assumption about how public money changes hands.
Look at the official map. The mainstream narrative presents Phebe Novakovic as the ultimate corporate turnaround artist.
It's seamless. She takes over as CEO of General Dynamics in early 2013, immediately after the company suffered a catastrophic $332 million loss in 2012.
A loss entirely driven by ineffective information systems acquisitions, mind you.
The financial press hails her ruthless efficiency in the years that followed. I mean, she slashed $2 billion in bad assets. She halted aggressive, undisciplined mergers and acquisitions.
She enforces brutal financial discipline across the entire corporate structure.
Right.
By doing this, she drives the company to a projected record of $52.6 billion in revenue by 2025.
You look at that track record and you see a textbook corporate executive saving a struggling legacy manufacturer.
Hang on, look closely at the other titans of defense and aerospace. The people running Lockheed Martin, Boeing, SpaceX.
They're traditionally aerospace engineers, aerodynamicists, or, technological visionaries building autonomous drones and artificial intelligence. They understand fluid dynamics.
They understand metallurgy. Novakovic has zero engineering background.
Before her corporate life, she was an operative for the Central Intelligence Agency from 1983 to 1986. Following her time in intelligence, she became a bureaucrat in the Office of Management and Budget under Presidents Bush and Clinton.
How does a budget administrator suddenly know how to build main battle tanks and nuclear submarines better than the engineers who designed them?
She doesn't engineer products.
She engineers the federal budget. Her career as the Deputy Associate Director for National Security or the Office of Management and Budget gave her the exact blueprint of the Pentagon's financial nervous system.
The OMB is not just an accounting office. It is the absolute choke point of the executive branch. Every single dollar the military wants to spend on a new weapon system must survive the OMB before it ever reaches Congress.
She learned exactly how to evaluate a program's political survivability. Later, as Special Assistant to the Secretary of Defense from 1997 to 2001, she mapped the internal leverage points of the military itself.
Add the legislative component to that map. Her husband, David Morrison, was the staff director for the House Defense Appropriations Subcommittee from 2003 to 2008.
The executive branch requests the money, but the Appropriations Committee actually writes the checks.
He literally wrote the budgets for national defense before becoming a lobbyist for Boeing. This is the crucial intersection.
General Dynamics doesn't predict what the government wants to buy. Their leadership network structurally ensures the government wants what General Dynamics is already building.
Power isn't inventing the best technology. It's making your company's survival legally indistinguishable from the state's survival.
Examine the 2018 acquisition of CSRA. General Dynamics is a company historically known for heavy metal.
They build Abrams tanks, they build nuclear submarines, they build Gulfstream business jets.
Then suddenly, they spend $9.7 billion to buy an IT services firm.
The market framed this as a strategic pivot to capture the growing federal IT modernization sector. On paper, the financial analysts called it a visionary modernization play to diversify revenue streams away from hardware.
Interrogate the financial risk underlying that move, though. To make this purchase, General Dynamics took on $2.8 billion in debt.
In a highly volatile government contracting space, leveraging a balance sheet that heavily for IT services looks reckless. IT is a sector completely disconnected from their core hardware manufacturing business.
Why would a company that bends steel for a living take a massive financial gamble on server racks and cloud computing? What gave them the confidence to swallow nearly $3 billion in debt overnight?
Well, it wasn't a risk. CSRA already had locked-in long-term contracts with the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and Health and Human Services.
Novakovic didn't buy a tech company. She bought a guaranteed taxpayer annuity.
Hardware programs are vulnerable. Building a submarine requires specialized titanium, highly trained welders, and massive physical factories.
Hardware is subject to catastrophic supply chain delays. We see this exact vulnerability with the engine delays currently hitting their Gulfstream G700 business jets.
General Dynamics is literally building these private planes without engines, parking empty fuselages on the tarmac just to keep the production lines moving while they wait for Rolls-Royce to deliver the hardware.
Physical logistics are fragile. IT contracts are invisible. Continuous cash flow.
When you provide the back-end health record system for the Veterans Administration, the government cannot turn you off. If the system goes down, it becomes an immediate national crisis. The revenue never stops.
Novakovic sits on the board of JP Chase. She understands the global financial architecture intimately. At this tier of power, you don't take entrepreneurial risks.
You buy state-backed liquidity.
Look at the crown jewel of General Dynamics' portfolio, the Columbia-class nuclear submarine. This specific platform is the backbone of America's future naval deterrence.
It is meant to replace the aging Ohio-class submarines, carrying the sea-based leg of the United States nuclear arsenal. General Dynamics has amassed a staggering $188.4 billion total backlog by the first quarter of 2026, largely driven by these massive naval commitments.
The mainstream financial press looks at a backlog approaching $200 billion and declares the company an impenetrable fortress of future revenue.
Bring in the Government Accountability Office reports. The GAO audits from 2024 to 2026 explicitly state the lead Columbia submarine is 12 to 16 months behind schedule.
The costs are exceeding estimates by hundreds of millions of dollars. Subcontractors are failing across the entire industrial base. The supply chain is fundamentally fractured.
Picture a municipality hiring a contractor to build a dam. The contractor is 2 years late. The town is actively flooding, and the contractor demands a 50% premium to continue working.
In any functioning market, a delay on a critical platform, a delay threatening the strategic nuclear parity of the United States in the 2030s, would trigger catastrophic penalties.
You would see fired executives, you would see massive financial clawbacks, you would see a total loss of the contract to a competitor.
The Navy cannot fire General Dynamics. General Dynamics and Huntington Ingalls Industries form an unbreakable duopoly in submarine construction. They have entirely captured the Pentagon's procurement architecture.
They do not compete against each other. They divide the labor and share the monopoly. When Electric Boat, the General Dynamics subsidiary building these submarines, fails to meet the schedule, the government has zero alternative.
They cannot buy a nuclear submarine from France or the United Kingdom. The government's only option is to throw more money at the problem to save the infrastructure.
General Dynamics privatizes the profits of the contract and entirely socializes the operational failure. They have engineered a reality where their own inefficiency guarantees them more federal funding.
The Navy needs the submarine to deter foreign adversaries. General Dynamics holds the Navy hostage to that need.
A true monopoly doesn't just eliminate competitors, it eliminates the customer's ability to say no.
In 2014, a rumor surfaced alleging that a General Dynamics manufactured Gulfstream jet was used in the logistics of capturing the Balkan drug lord Darko Saric.
There is zero documentary evidence to support this claim in the source material. It circulates entirely on marginal conspiratorial websites.
The theory is built purely on the coincidences of Novakovic's Serbian heritage, her former life in the CIA, and her company's production of high-end private aircraft.
The anomaly here is not the rumor itself. The anomaly is how the corporate system reacted to it.
It didn't react at all.
Unlike other Fortune 500 CEOs who would launch massive public relations defense campaigns, issue legal threats, or deploy crisis management teams to crush a narrative linking them to international drug cartels, Novakovic completely ignored it.
The system protected her silence. The institutional weight of General Dynamics simply absorbed the information without acknowledging it.
A normal corporate board would panic at the mention of a cartel. This board did nothing.
Consider the second, more dangerous gap in the narrative. Novakovic has consolidated total control over the architecture of American defense.
She was elected chair of the Aerospace Industries Association for 2026. This position puts her at the head of the most powerful defense lobbying apparatus in the country.
She retains her seat on the J.P. Morgan Chase Board of Directors. She personally holds over 766,000 shares of General Dynamics, a stake worth roughly $275 million.
All of this points to a meticulously constructed, highly centralized web of influence. Yet across all the financial filings, the quarterly earnings calls, and the corporate governance reports, there is absolutely no public succession plan.
A leader obsessed with systemic stability, a CEO who demands predictable cash flow and the absolute elimination of risk, has built a $188 billion machine that relies entirely on her personal nexus of intelligence, congressional, and financial relationships.
The system is perfectly engineered, but the contradiction is glaring. It might only be engineered for her.
If the infrastructure depends on the unique biography of a former CIA officer who knows the appropriations process from the inside out, the stability of the entire enterprise is tied to a single point of failure.
You have a defense apparatus legally mandated to project power into the next century, entirely dependent on a network that exists in the mind of one executive.
Progressive politicians, like Senator Elizabeth Warren, publicly attack General Dynamics. They demand accountability.
They launch high-profile investigations into how the company deployed its lobbying apparatus to push for retroactive research and engineering tax breaks.
They point to the fact that while General Dynamics is securing tax loopholes and demanding $15.4 billion in contract modifications for late submarines, they are simultaneously executing massive stock buybacks.
They are using federal funds to artificially inflate their share price, enriching their executives and their largest shareholders.
The political class frames this entirely as corporate greed corrupting democracy. They argue that rogue defense contractors are exploiting the taxpayer.
The politicians are operating under a delusion. They think they are regulating a private corporation trying to extract money from the state.
They're using the language of commercial regulation, antitrust laws, tax audits, stock buyback restrictions to combat an entity that transcends commercial definitions.
You cannot find a company into compliance when that company builds the very weapons the state uses to enforce its own sovereignty.
General Dynamics is not a private company anymore. By monopolizing the critical infrastructure of nuclear deterrence, securing a permanent duopoly on submarine production, and embedding its leadership into the highest levels of the financial and legislative architecture of the country, General Dynamics has become an administrative branch of the U.S. government.
It is a branch of government that just happens to pay dividends to Vanguard and the Crown family.
You are watching a corporation lobby a government. You are watching a government negotiate with itself and leaving you the bill.